So
Okay.
once again, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Holly. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm curious about the name of your company, Wherewolf, now that I know your first name. Is it related? Is there
It is related. There might have been an incident where I had a bad mountain bike crash and I disappeared under the radar into critical care for a few weeks. And my friends were asking where I was, and I came out the other side with a laptop and a product.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. You don't get much better than that in terms of starting stories, but that's really interesting. And so that's obviously what sort of inspired then the conception of your brand.
Well, the other half of Wherewolf, the Where is my business partner, who is the traveling salesman. He is around the world. He's meeting, he's greeting, and I get to hide away in a laptop somewhere.
Oh, well, that's not too bad at all. Now, a lot of people might not know exactly what services you provide and what it is that Wherewolf does. So if you could maybe explain, just to flesh out the idea of what your service provides in terms of its software work and its work within the adventure tourism industry.
So in a common adventure tourism scenario is that people might want to go jet boating or skydiving. They will visit a website, they will identify a product that they want to do the next day. They'll place a booking, pay online with a credit card. After paying, Wherewolf will then send the guest a link to a digital waiver they can fill out ahead of time. If they don't ahead of time, traditionally it would have been a clipboard and a pen and paper on the day. These days it's an iPad, allowing the operator to have a bit more of an oversight of which guests are coming, who's filled out waivers, dietary requirement, wetsuit sizes, that sort of stuff. And then once the guests have left the premise, of course the guest data is captured for follow-up marketing, such as reply to this email if you had any problems, or leave us a review on TripAdvisor.
Right, so it sort of all sort of deals with every step of the way in terms of when they're signing up for the product, and every sort of guarantee and disclaimer that they have.
We try and make the adventure tourism operators' needs easier, and we've done a pretty solid job on adventure tourism over the last 8 years now, and we're now looking at expanding into a little bit wider verticals such as healthcare, accommodation, those sort of things, wherever a waiver is needed. And unfortunately, due to a COVID thing, waivers are everywhere.
Right, I don't doubt that at all. Now, speaking of adventure tourism, obviously you're quite familiar with the space now that you've been working with them for quite some time. What trends are you noticing in the realm of digitization and customer needs?
So I'm definitely seeing that digitization is critical to letting some operators grow. As consumer demand shifts away from physical products and things, and we're shifting more towards experiences, the best way to share and capture those ephemeral experiences is with videos and photos, the infamous selfie. And adventure tourism operators leverage the selfie more than they do a souvenir trinket.
Right, I mean, that's a fascinating observation, and that's obviously something that's relatively new in recent years. This sort of favoritism of obviously everything digital, and that includes the souvenir that's very prized indeed for travelers. Is that something you think that's going to continue and extend even? Are you predicting any shifts with that?
So we are seeing struggles with adventure tourism operators who are in turn struggling to meet their guests' desires for social media credibility almost. The whitewater rafting deep in the canyon or the paintballing out in the forests and boondocks are very hard to capture efficiently and eloquently on a selfie. These operators are struggling a bit compared to axe throwing. Now, I personally consider axe throwing about as boring as bowling, but it's really easy to take a photo of your mate throwing a sharp axe. It's strange to still see some of the operators charging money for what is essentially a watermarked digital photo that the guests would love to share. The only advice I keep offering these operators is please give your guests free photos that are watermarked. They're only going to share them.
Right, no, I completely agree. And I think that's something that the guests and travelers would definitely agree. No one really likes paying for these little extras that really add up.
Especially if they're not little extras, there's already corporate branding all over it.
Right, absolutely. That just adds to it, doesn't it? Now, speaking of the travel space and adventure tourism, just before we continue, just before I let you go, because we do have to keep this rather short at the moment, we're a bit strained on time, but do you have any tips on sort of furthering the customer experience for these businesses in terms of what they can add using digitization and these services?
Well, the best way for a brand to grow, of course, is word of mouth, and word of mouth comes through connecting with their guests, allowing the operators, the hosts, to become friends with the people they've showed great times. And the best way to allow the hosts to have time is, of course, to streamline the boring paperwork with Wherewolf.
I like that. It's very, very good. No one likes paperwork, do they?
Exactly. And it is boring. Allow the computer to take care of the computer stuff.
It's really great that you have that service, and obviously consumers and travel operators have that option to just pass it on over to you, that boring stuff, because no one wants to think about that when they're having a good time on a holiday, do they?
Oh no.
I suppose not. Well, we hope to see Wherewolf grow very much and expand into those other sectors that you mentioned. That'll be really interesting to see, and especially if you tackle it as it's all evolving. But apart from that, thanks very much for sharing your insights today. It's been great hearing from you.
Thank you for hosting us, Holly.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.